Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hopenning. This is a place that we have created that is inspiring, uplifting, positive, and will bring you hope. My name is Fran. I am a 34-year veteran elementary school teacher, soon to be retired elementary school teacher. It is almost the end of June. And I am a part-time rapid transformational therapy practitioner and enjoying helping people create and live their lives. My beautiful co-host is Marina. She is a full-time clinical hypnotherapist specializing in rapid transformational therapy. And we both hail from Alberta, Canada. I am in the north, and Marina is in Calgary. And welcome to Hopenning number 71. Marina, we have a special guest today and a fellow Canadian. Would you please introduce her?
Thank you, Fran. And I am very happy to introduce our colleague, Signe Knutson, to you from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Signe, welcome here. Signe is a certified rapid transformational therapy, hypnotherapist, mental health counselor, master life coach, holistic therapist, master herbalist, and early childhood education, something you have in common. She values kindness and compassion, non-judgement, peace, and love. She believes in the power of your mind to heal your body in miraculous ways. And I think she's talking from experience. So Signe, welcome. We are so grateful that you have joined us today to bring hope. So let's just fall in the door and ask you, what is your story? What brought you to be where you are today?
Thank you, Fran, and thank you, Marina. I'm so honored to be here today. And I'm so lucky to be here today. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with lupus. The symptoms, there were all kinds of things going in my body that it took a long time for the doctors to figure out they were all related. I had a feeling it was all related. I had pericarditis, I had a thyroid nodule, and they removed half my thyroid. I had pleurisy. I was having swellings and falling down, like just losing my energy completely, and I would have to lay down on the sidewalk before I could keep going. And all these things. Oh, and I was also diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and they gave me antidepressants before I was diagnosed with lupus. And I was diagnosed with lupus shortly after my son was born, and I couldn't use my body to do anything. I couldn't lift him up. He was my fourth child and my last child, and I think of him as the child that I never carried. And so he never went through that withdrawal of being carried by mom and not being carried by mom. It progressed by the time he was 2 years old. It progressed to the point where I was in the hospital for weeks at a time in the winter time. And I figured out that winter was causing me to, it just seized up my body. When I got cold, my body would freeze literally, and I could not move. And I became paraplegic, and I could not move my hands, anything. And I remembered while I was in my hospital bed, this book by Dr. Shaw, and talking about meditating and going internally and talking to your own cells, and in particular your bone marrow, to create new healthy red blood cells. And because I couldn't move, all I could do was think. So I just meditated for hours a day and imagined and told my cells that I loved them and saw them in my mind growing and becoming whole and going where they needed to go. And then gradually as I got back use of my hands, you know, like I would just imagine everything before I could do it. So I imagined playing the piano before I could go back and play the piano again, and started with one finger, right? And it was excruciating pain, but I knew I had to do it. 6 months after I got out of the hospital, I finally regained enough use of my hands that I could begin to write, and my left hand came back first. So I had to learn to write with my left hand, and which is not my dominant hand. And, you know, so there was a progression where I gradually got everything back. But the process involved was seeing it happen first, and then moving towards it, and then finally being able to do it. And now, fast forward 8 years from that episode in the hospital, I have climbed a mountain, and I've gone kayaking, and this summer I'm hoping to go horseback riding. And these are all things I never thought I would do again. And so I attribute a lot of this to that mind work. And when I learned about Marissa Peer and RTT and how she uses command cell therapy, which is essentially the same thing, right? It's telling your cells to fix themselves and go back to their original DNA code so you can get better. And the difference between the RTT and the, you know, just talking to your cells is that because you can program your subconscious mind with hypnotherapy, you can tell the cells to keep doing their job in the background. You don't have to be meditating on it for hours a day, right? You can listen to a recording or meditate on it for 20 minutes a day, and it'll just keep on happening in the background. And so shortly after I took RTT, you know, within a week of graduating and working with some of the fellow graduates, some miraculous results happened. I was taking heavy duty painkillers all the time. And shortly after a session the first was a session with a colleague, and then I did a self-hypnosis session when I was in the hospital for a kidney biopsy because lupus had gone into my kidneys. And I told myself that I would not take any more painkillers because I was already taking painkillers. So all I said was, I'm not taking any more painkillers. And so the words that I was telling myself are, I don't feel any pain. I feel no pain at all. There is no pain. I'm comfortable throughout the process. So I told the doctors and nurses this. So, you know, they offered me painkillers for before and after, in addition to the local anesthetic. And I said, no, I'm just going to hypnotize myself. And so in the process, they, you know, they were fascinated for one thing, because I was so relaxed on the table. Then I was laughing, and I was, you know, kind of positively enjoying this kidney biopsy. And so they asked me for some tips, and I gave them some tips on what they can say to their patients to help them relax. And then afterwards, you know, there's 4 hours of observation. I'm laying in the bed, and the first, you know, here's a little, you know, TMI, but the first urine after they check for blood and to see how much blood is in there. There's supposed to be some blood because you've just had holes poked in your kidneys, and it was clear. There's no blood at all. It was already healing up, and I felt no pain. And then, you know, as the anesthetic wore off, I still felt no pain, but then I felt a pressure in my chest because I was so aware of what was going on in my body. I'm like, there's no pain, but there's this pressure, and what is it? And so I went inside and I asked what it was, and it said guilt. And I was like, okay, it's guilt. So what do I have to do? And it said, apologize. And I said, oh, okay. So what do I need to apologize for? And this is me having a dialogue in my mind with my subconscious, right? Because I had been meditating for so long. And it said everything. I had to apologize for everything that I had done to anybody that I could recall in order to relieve all that guilt. And so I said, if I do that, if I contact everybody by email and by telephone or in person, this week, will this pressure go away? And it said yes. And so I promised to do that. And I felt this lifting, right? This lifting, this clearing of this pressure and this weight in my chest. And I felt lighter than ever before. And not only did I not have any pain, but I was absolutely euphoric. Like it felt like ecstasy, to be frank. And my body felt so good. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, okay, well, this is great. And then that night I got home from the hospital, I slept, I had a huge sweat, like buckets and buckets of sweat came out of me as I was sleeping. And I woke up in the morning and the inflammation all over my body was gone. I had lost tons of inflammation, edema in my legs, just I had slimmed down probably by about 5 pounds overnight because of letting go of that inflammation. And the pain was still gone. And I was like, okay, the pain is still gone. And the pain stayed gone for quite a few days. And, long story short, I went from taking Tylenol 3s daily, 2 or 3 of them, plus ibuprofen, extra strength, to nothing, no painkillers whatsoever for months. And just, occasionally, for a headache or something. And that was all through the power of the mind and through addressing what it is inside that is causing the pain or the discomfort and finding out what it is, making a deal with it and following through. And that's an especially important part that I really tell my clients is, you're going to learn something. The important part is for you to follow through because you're making a deal with yourself. So if you want this to work, you have to follow through. So that's kind of my story right now. And I've healed so much that I went from living in Vancouver, where I had moved for the mild temperatures, to moving back to Winnipeg, where my family is, where you know what the temperatures are like. Not mild.
Winter peg.
Winter peg. And she could just be called extreme peg because it goes, from plus 40 to minus 40. And yeah, so I'm here now. I'm going to, make every effort to stay in a warm place for most of winter, but just the fact that I'm here now is pretty miraculous. And I'm extremely thankful to RTT Hypnotherapy for that. That's my story for now.
That's amazing. My goodness, I have goosebumps, Signe. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you for being such a beautiful example of what the power of the mind is. It's just phenomenal. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking and you mentioned that you spoke to yourself and it was guilt, that you needed to get rid of guilt. It reminds me as well. I did some therapy on a person who suffered with lupus as well. And a very well, I don't know about the other part, but the guilt story was significant in her regression. When we did the regression and we saw scenes from her past, there was a lot of guilt in her past that she really needed to release as well. Part of it was not taking her own mom's illness seriously, and then her mom passed away very suddenly. And that was a huge guilt for her because she was an only child. So it's interesting how guilt plays on the physical part of the body, not just with the head, and the emotional part, but really it gets down deep into your cells, like as you talked about how, we call it command cell therapy, but it was really what you did was you commanded your cells to return back to their healthy selves. Marina, have you ever experienced that with your clients as well? Any type of a guilt?
Well, it's something that guilt is a big thing. And it just reminds me of, somebody asked me in a podcast once what I think the reason behind I don't want to own it, the breast cancer was that I had. And in my case, it was rejection. It was wanting to be noticed, especially by my family. And so again, going inward, knowing that that answer is within me. And when I fix seeing myself, accepting myself, loving myself, my husband walked into my life, and because he could see me. Until I could see me, he couldn't see me. Nobody could. And it's exactly the same way when I started to acknowledge myself and give myself the attention that I crave from my family that I was never going to get, then my health returned. So it's just, I think when all the negatives, the guilt, anxiety, fear is a big one. All those negative emotions and not feeling good enough to get rid of that. But Signe, what really struck me is I've been really drawn to Dr. Joe Vitale lately, and just revisiting the whole Ho'oponopono and that whole idea of saying to the divine, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, and thank you. To me, that's very similar to what you were just saying about letting that guilt go. We don't always understand it because we act from what we know, but to just be able to let that go just reminds me of that.
I find myself helping clients with Ho'oponopono quite often. And because it's got such a simple formula, right? I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, I thank you. And, there's an official way that the order goes, right? But the essence I've found is that with every person, those words will have a meaning that's attached to a particular person, a particular event. When they say, please forgive me, they acknowledge that part that we play. If we are in conflict with somebody else, it's instead of taking the victim role and saying, you did this to me, you can say, I'm sorry for whatever role I played in that. Please forgive me. And when you ask forgiveness from somebody who you're also forgiving, a massive shift happens. And almost every time that I use Ho'oponopono in a session, the tears come, right? The tears come because they are letting go of something that has been holding them back or holding them down for so long. And this is something I say about forgiveness, right? People say, well, if you forgive somebody, are you letting them off the hook? And I say, no, you're letting go of the hook. You don't have to hold it anymore.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah. I've also heard it said as like a mirror. You're holding a mirror up to that other person, but you're actually looking at yourself to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, to ourselves because of the bad way we've treated ourselves. Until we figure it out that this is actually what I'm doing to myself by holding all that guilt, by holding all that pain, by holding resentment and bitterness. It's hurting us. It's taking a pill and expecting somebody else to die. So when you hold a mirror up, it's like you're talking to yourself as well as the person behind the mirror. So you have a lot of different titles. You are a mental health counselor, you're a master life coach, a holistic therapist. You've got so much, and you must be able to grab and pull out of all these different life experiences, life learnings, in order to be even that much of a better RTT therapist. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've used that in RTT and RTT back into the other types of counseling that you do?
Well, one thing that is quite helpful all the time is the master herbalism. So I took that when I was pregnant with my first child back in 1996. And at the time, the government had funding for things like training young mothers to go to school. And so I thought, well, what do I want to learn? What do I want to go to school for? And I wasn't interested in becoming a secretary or, and so I thought, what's going to help my family, even if I'm not working per se? And I was always interested in herbalism and herbology, and had already been using herbs to help myself and other people, using an old gypsy recipe book, which is quite amazing. And I'm just trying to think of it might have come back to me. It's Mary Thornton Quelch, Herbs for Everyday Use. That's what it is. And so I said, I'll take this training for herbology. And it's not just herbs, right? You get anatomy and physiology, biology, chemistry. I took 7 years to complete that by distance, and then went to Calgary actually for the hands-on courses of reflexology and listening hands therapy, and also took nursing diagnosis as part of that. So it's quite a holistic diploma. And so the holistic therapist is also in line with the herbology. But to answer your question, often when somebody has an illness and they've let go of the psychological reasons for it, the trauma, the childhood trauma, and they've learned to love and accept themselves the way they are, they're letting go of the root cause, and they're letting go of the weight that has been holding them down, but their body still needs support. And, so you can talk to your cells all you want, but if you don't have the right vitamins or minerals or nutrients in your body, you're going to be pulling from your own stores to try and fix your body. So that's where the nutrition and the herbs come in, is to support your body through those healing changes, as well as, the psychological part. So that's the best part, is when you find, what herbs or food. And very often the person's own subconscious mind knows what to take. Yeah. Like one woman, it was about her eyes, and her vision was clouded because she didn't want to see something. And we found out what it was she didn't want to see. And then she asked her subconscious, what do I need to help me to see? And, carrot juice. Or so she knew what she needed, right? And so she made a deal with her eyes that she would drink carrot juice every day, and her cataracts are clearing, and she can see better than, in ages. I've had a couple clients with eye problems where their eyes have been better in their exams after the session. And I myself have actually straightened my eyes. I have astigmatism. And now, after a lifetime of not being able to make eye contact and focus on people, I can do that now. And that's just in the last year. So
amazing.
Yeah.
It's just one big miracle walking around. I love it.
I think we all are.
True. But I love that you can, I think for us, and this is what RTT enables us to do, is to really be walking examples to our clients. Everything that we ask them to do, we've done.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. So much of the physical stuff, right? Like the three of us, we understand it. We understand how important it is psychologically, emotionally for the physicality of the body, releasing weight or releasing anxiety or releasing whatever it is we need to get rid of, right? We understand the psychological connection, but I think, and the world is changing. The Western world is changing, where we are starting to look elsewhere for healing rather than just going to the doctor's office and getting more pills, whatever they are, with antidepressants or anti-anxieties or ADHD meds, or the list, of course, is endless. And I suppose with lupus, I can't even imagine what types of drugs there were. Are you still, are you, were you able to cut back on the lupus meds, or were you able to eliminate them completely? How
Um,
did that go?
well, yeah, I guess to put it succinctly, when I was in the hospital, those little cups, they're like little white cups like that they put pills in. They gave me 2 of those full every day. And because I couldn't use my hands, they had to spoon feed me. So they were spoon feeding me pills. Like I think it took like 2 or 3 spoonfuls of big pills in the morning, and then some later, and then plus intravenous stuff. And yeah, no, I was hooked up. I at one time, I was taking like hydromorph contin in the hospital, like 9 milligrams, which is an extremely high dose, and still it was just taking the edge off the pain. And when I ended up back in the hospital a few years ago in Vancouver, and this was like another event, one of my lymph nodes had gone necrotic. So I had this like dead tissue in my body, and they didn't want to operate to get it out because of lupus, and then I'm immunosuppressed. So they used antibiotics to, try and clean it up internally. And the pain was so severe. They were giving me hydromorph contin, and I told them what my dose was previously, and the nurses didn't believe me that I had been taking 9 milligrams. And I said, this isn't the reason. What you're giving me isn't touching it, is because I have a very high threshold because of what they've given me before. So I was going to make a long story short, but it's kind of a long story long. But it went from those, like, I think I was taking 11 medications at one time, and also self-injecting methotrexate once a week, which is chemotherapy. Not because I had cancer, but because they know that a side effect of chemotherapy is that it suppresses your immune system. And lupus is an overreaction of the immune system. So you inject yourself with this, ironically, cancer-causing, cancer-fighting chemical to suppress your immune system so you can get better, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I had to do this, though. Otherwise, I was like puffed up like a beach ball all the time. And so those are like 11 different kinds of pills plus the methotrexate. So that's 12 pretty harsh medications. And what I'm down to now is hydroxychloroquine, which was like, the bad one in COVID. It's actually incredibly safe, and that's why they give it to people with lupus for years on end, with virtually no side effects. And then one other all the time called azathioprine, and then occasionally prednisone. When I have a flare, I'll take prednisone until it subsides, and then I wean off the prednisone. So now I'm down to basically 2 meds all the time, and 1 in emergency use. So yeah, from like 12 meds down to 2 or 3.
And it's amazing. And to me, from where you've been to where you are today, you're walking. You're living your life. You're going horseback riding. You're climbing mountains. You are doing amazing things. That's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I think the most, when I said when I was in the hospital and I knew I had to come back and play piano, the best part for me is actually being able to play piano and guitar and well enough to play with other people, and just because those vibrations of music are healing in and of themselves, right? And when you're playing something, when you're listening to, if the vibrations are sympathetic with your own energetic signature, it will align your molecules in your cells and heal you, which is incredible. And like even on Monday, I played a song here in Winnipeg, in a place called the Cube, Old Market Square. And what it is there's like brick buildings all the way around. It's right in the middle of downtown in the Exchange District. It's very old brick buildings. And there's been music played in that neighborhood for decades. And whenever the music is in tune, what's happening is like with an old violin, the buildings themselves vibrate sympathetically with the music that's being played and create this huge reverb, right? And so I knew that because I've played there before. And so I played a song in A minor and C major, and it reverberated. And so basically I vibrated the whole downtown, or like at least the whole Exchange District and everybody in it very intentionally to heal them.
That's amazing.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So what do you have, like, what are you doing next? I mean, it's so exciting just listening to where you were to where you are now, and what kind of ideas are you visualizing for yourself? What is your next gateway of healing, or what are you going to do like in the next X amount of years?
Yeah. Well, one thing that is really a pet project of mine is helping people heal their money trauma, or healing can be a loaded word, so I say transforming money trauma, especially for women, because women have rarely been the money makers, the earners, the owners of our own companies. And this generation is one of the first where women are self-employed and making money. So and the guilt comes into that, like, oh, I should be serving others for free. My work isn't valuable. And these things we tell ourselves because we're women. And so I have a group on Mondays, it's just called Healing Money Trauma. And we go through sort of a group meditation and find those childhood memories where something happened and told us that we didn't deserve the money. And, everybody regresses and finds something. And then we give that child what they need, so that they know they deserve to be taken care of. They deserved to have enough food to eat and clothes to wear and to have fun and to enjoy themselves. And we still do, right? So there's that, and continuing to help people with their physical ailments. I've helped a number of people with long COVID, which has been interesting because they've been women holding on to the inability to say no. And so helping them get through that is actually really fun once you get through the traumatic parts, because you practice, or I practice with them, to get them to say no to things. And you start with something silly, like if they have white hair, you ask if they have orange hair. And they say no.
Interesting.
Right? And you kind of gradually get up to like, do you like bananas? Yes or no? And, so they learn that by giving a clear yes or no, they can actually manifest what they want in the world, because they're clearing a path. I don't like this. I do like this. You can't do that to me. You can do this with me, right? And so you're aligning with your own true values and creating a new path. And so it's remarkable how aligning actually with your own true values is healing as well. Discovering what you like, what you don't like, and
just true
being
to
able
the
to
self.
say it. That's right. Yeah, being true to yourself. So yeah, the money trauma, continuing healing on a physical level, exploring more of the healing with music, and relationships. Relationships are a big one. And I find that even helping to heal one person in a relationship can shift the whole relationship. Yeah. And for myself, I have, purposefully developed this career online so I can do it anywhere in the world. So next winter, although I'm here in Manitoba now, I'm hoping to be in Italy or France or Turkey next winter.
Sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah.
No, that's so. Signe, if our client or our viewers would like to get hold of you, how can they do that?
Well, I have my own app called it's Jane app, and so it's Signe Knutson Hypnotherapy .janeapp.com, and that gives you access to my calendar. You can book a free check-in, or if you feel ready to have a session, a 90-minute session, you can book in a session. And otherwise, my email is my first name and last name at yahoo.ca. So SIGNEKNUTSON at yahoo.ca. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Wonderful. I will link them as well for you. And it's just amazing.
And I looked at your app, and you offer a lot of different services. Like I was really impressed. I scrolled down, it's like, oh, click there, click there, click there. Just wonderful things that you offer on your Signe Knutson Hypnotherapy.Jane app. It was wonderful. It was lovely to see.
Yeah, thanks. One thing I really love doing is the kind of group work, the corporate work, where you elevate the whole culture and structure of a business by helping each person who works there. And ideally from the custodian to the CEO, right? So that everybody gets this alignment, and then working together, finding out who works best with each other according to their values and their work styles, right? And see who's being supported, who needs more support. And so that kind of thing can happen in a one-day workshop, or in a retreat where you spend a few hours with the whole group and then individual sessions. And that's very healing for a workplace. And because it's corporate, the goal beyond healing everybody is to raise the bottom line or smash the glass ceiling. And yes, it does that, because everybody has a better concept of themselves and their self-value and what they can do. So that's a really kind of fun way to look at helping everybody through this economy, right? Our economy is topsy-turvy right now. So, you know, if you're a regular person, you need to make more money now. That's just the way it is.
Oh,
I
that
agree.
sounds absolutely amazing what you do on so many different areas, not just healing, not just hope. I mean, I think everything is hope giving that you do, but my goodness, very talented woman, very gifted.
Thank you.
So I'll say what Marina usually does. Signe, what's your last message of hope for our guests?
Well, it is that you have the answers inside of you, and your subconscious mind is there to help you survive. And if you can learn, or you get the help to communicate lucidly with your subconscious mind, you're going to get better, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to do better. And that's my message, I think, in a nutshell.
And you're a
Absolutely
living
wonderful.
example. You're a
Mhm.
beautiful example of doing just that.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
that's
much.
wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. This was absolutely fantastic, and so happy that we had this conversation. And I feel very uplifted and full of hope. So you did a great job.
Thank you.
Signe.
If I can just add on the end, you know, I talk about having that nutritional and herbal support for your body. I'm also representing a company called Healthy Home, and they have a supplement that is a plant-based stem cell activator. So I'm sure, you know, if you know about disease, you've heard about stem cell therapy, and that is, you know, it can be very invasive. You're using cells from somebody else's placenta or umbilical cord, or from a different part of your body being injected into your own body. And it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And not everybody is eligible for it. Whereas with STEM Active, this supplement uses herbs that they've studied for years and found that they increase the production and release of stem cells. And so it's put together, and what they found is that with a daily dose, you can support your own bone marrow to create and release 5 million new stem cells a day. And what's been happening is, you know, I've been taking it. It's helping me clear up, you know, other lupus symptoms that weren't, you know, already being cleared up. I've heard people being helped with numerous degenerative diseases. You know, of course, I can't say healing, I can't say cured, but they're being helped with many diseases, with fractures and injuries and wounds, autoimmune disease, anything to do with aging, because stem cells, we produce lots of them till we're 30, and then it drops off by 90%. And then we go downhill. And the people who are doing well after, you know, in their 50s, 60s, 70s and up are people who have more stem cells in circulation. So yeah, with Healthy Home, it makes this accessible, this kind of therapy accessible to your average person, kind of more in the line of the price of a basket of groceries these days than, you know, the price tag of, you know, $10,000 to $60,000 for stem cell therapy. So that is something that I offer as well.
That's great. Well, thank you for letting us know about that. I never heard of that, so that's really good. I'll have a look into it. Thank you, Signe.
Yeah, kind of dovetails with that command cell therapy.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Signe, for being here. And if you like us, please subscribe, and we will be back next week bringing you more hope.
Bye now.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.